daily picnic walkathon, Gita chanting competition. A lot of those things happen this time of year, so exciting times. Now, today, with the time we have, I wanted to talk to you about the significance of Shankara Jayanti being today, where we look at the great figures in our Hindu history, and sometimes we get hyperbolic when we say that without this individual in our history, Hinduism would not exist today. We point at various figures and we say that. There are a few figures that actually deserve that description. That without them, Hinduism as we know it today would be unrecognizable. There would be no religion to speak of even. Bhagavan Shri Adi Shankaracharya Ji is the foremost of those kind of people. Why? For this we need a historical context, cultural context, and we can connect it back to where we find ourselves here today. Okay? Living in the 21st century today, especially with such abundance and great wealth, you and I have the luxury of dismissing many parts of our culture and scripture. I call it a luxury in what way? That we can say this is irrelevant to me, does not matter, I don't need to know this, and we can still lead what we would consider to be happy lives. That's a fact. Where, it's not that, okay, I miss a few weeks of satsang, or I don't really have that Hindu identity for several years, and therefore I come back to it later on. I can go an entire lifetime without it at all. I won't really feel like something is missing in my life. I won't feel empty at all. So when that's the case that we're in right now, that I can lead a happy life, or what I think is a happy life, without this Hindu relevance at all, then if we're coming in here saying, oh, Hindu scriptures must be followed or else there is sorrow, there's a disconnect right there. That connection isn't really made at that point. So for this, we go back to Bhagavan Shri Adi Shankaracharya Ji's argument as to why this knowledge is even needed. The very first thing he starts with is, are you actually happy or are you in sorrow? Now the first thing we'd say is, of course, we're happy. What are you talking about? There are some moments of sorrow and stress and dejection and anxiety. Besides that, though, everything else is great. Now, let's put this in animalistic terms then. Humans are animals, just like any other animal. We're a bit smarter, we communicate a little bit better sometimes, but besides that, we're like animals. Where there's a hamster on that hamster wheel, some cheese or something that's hung up somewhere, the faster it goes, it only wears itself out, it's getting no closer to that treat that's up there. And earnestly, it's not that it wisens up over time and says, okay, this whole wheel running isn't working, maybe I should try some other method. It gets back on that wheel every day, goes as fast as it can, and doesn't get anything at the end of the day. As a human, my life is not that much different. Where I'm on my own hamster wheel, and my hamster wheel is filled with amazing things. I have friends on that wheel along with me. I have a family who adores me on that wheel with me. I have great houses and cars and everything on this wheel. At the end of the day, though, I'm still running on that darn wheel. Now, I can get distracted throughout my life and think, okay, all these goodies are on this wheel. It's not going anywhere, but that's okay because I'm fine where I am. Now, this is the very beginner stage of a sadhaka. Stage 0, if you will. It's like in the negative stages then. Now, with this philosophy, it is a philosophy then, this is materialism in essence. I have lived this way for lifetimes upon lifetimes. Now, this is the first part that needs belief then. The very fact that I've lived this for lifetimes and lifetimes, do I actually believe that or not? Seeing is believing. Perceiving is believing. So I know my life experiences and believe that they actually happened because I've remembered them. This whole past life thing is something that I can't remember. How do I validate it then? Scripture is the only way. But then I don't believe in Scripture. So already that's an impediment. So the very Shastra that tells me you're unhappy because you've lived this way, I refuse to believe that that very first step is even true. Where is this trust in Shastra from there then? That's the first thing I must rely on is understanding I've had this previous lives, this is how I've lived. Now, after making this point very clear, Bhagavan Shri Adi Shankaracharya Ji takes one more layer here. What does he say next? The reason for all of my problems, then, is ignorance. Now again, this is up for contention as well. My problems come from the person who messes with me every day. My problems come from my financial situation. My problems come from my health problems. My problem comes from the physical environment that I find myself in. These are all the issues I face. Where the heck did this ignorance logic come from? That's hard to believe as well. Now, what ignorance is he speaking of? This ignorance of what my true identity is. I think I am Brahmachari Hari Chaitanya, wearing these yellow clothes, coming in here speaking in front of people. I think that's my life, that is my identity. Someone asks me, who are you? I respond, Brahmachari. Shastra tells me something different. Scripture tells me I am something beyond just being encased in this body with these sense organs, beyond just this mind with its oscillations and emotions, beyond this intellect that most of the time has no clarity, every now and then by mistake has a little bit of clarity in it. I refuse to believe that as well. If I am to believe that, I must first believe in what the Scripture says. Only then do I come to that conclusion. Because if I am something beyond this very body, there must be times where I'm not associated with the body. Now come on, men, tell me the last time you were out of your body. Not a drug out-of-body experience. No, not going there. Last time you were out of your body, we can't even think of a time. It's not possible. Therefore, what is the Scripture saying? Objection comes up there also. Now, Bhagavan here says, because ignorance is my issue then, what is the only thing that fixes ignorance? Knowledge. If there is darkness, the only thing that eradicates darkness is light. I can go in there, I can try any other method besides putting a light in there, darkness will not go. It's a zero-sum game here, all or nothing. And there is no half darkness leaving, nothing like that. It's either light or it's dark. It's very black and white here. Like that, I'm either with this knowledge of myself or I'm ignorant to it. So then, say I come to a magical point where I believe what the Shastra says. Yes, I've had these past lives, that's why I'm here right now. Yes, ignorance is my problem. I may blame all these other things on the periphery for my issues. All of those are spokes on a wheel, the epicenter of which is ignorance of my true identity. Say I come to that point by some divinity, some kind of magic. Now, what do I do at this point? Notice I said do. Is any problem in my life fixed by knowing something? I have to do something to fix a problem. Knowing something doesn't fix anything in life. You have a leak in your house. You call the appraiser or the investigator, whatever it is, they come, and they tell you, you have a leak coming out of here. And you say, yes, I know that as well. And you say, okay, are you going to fix it? He says, no. My job is to only identify what the problem is. I'm not a plumber that fixes things. What is his purpose in life then? You know by looking at the leak, there's a leak. There's water coming out. The law says this guy has to come in, identify that that leak is there. Some other guy comes later, could be 3 days later, 4 days later, to fix that thing. So knowing something never really fixes things. There has to be some doing to remedy a situation that has gone wrong. But here what we're seeing in Shastra is, and Bhagavan Shri Adi Shankaracharya Ji upheld this view throughout his life, though brief life, very impactful, that it is not action, meaning karma, that fixes this ignorance issue, Knowledge is the only thing that gets me to that moksha. Now, for us, that seems like, yeah, that's natural. Ignorance is what's eradicated by knowledge, of course. This was a hotly contested issue during his lifetime. Because if I am someone that is steeped in rituals, which is also a part of the scripture, doing these rituals gives me certain results. Whether it is I have no children as a grihastha, there is a certain yaga that I do. We've seen this in Ramayana times also. Performing that the right way, not 1 but 4 children are born. There are processes where if I do it with the right samagri, padarthas, I'm the adhikari for it, I do this process the right way, the tantra, then I'm guaranteed to be born in Swarga in the next life. This is documented. All of this is there. With all of this being the case, why would I ever believe that karma cannot solve my problems then? That's where we were at this time period. And here comes this young monk saying that, no, that is the secondary part of the scripture. That's for people who are trying to purify their minds. The real knowledge of your true identity, that is what gives you moksha. That is what you should go for. Furthermore, he says, happiness, everlasting mukti, is not being in some other loka and enjoying it forever. It is actually not being born again. Enjoyment, whoever said enjoyment is not being born again? Happiness comes from experiencing the objects around me in a conducive way. That's what makes me happy. Here is this monk saying that no, the cessation of all of this, no experiencing whatsoever, that is mukti at the end. You see how contentious all of this is? How it's counterintuitive completely to what we actually believe? So these arguments he would give logically. Saying, okay, you don't believe in what the scripture says. And it was those times he would say, you are modern people who have modern problems. This is 2nd century BCE he's saying this. You are modern people with modern problems. You don't think this scripture is relevant. Let me show you how it's relevant. That is what he did. That is what Bhagavan Sri Vedavyasji did before him. That's what Swami Vivekanandaji did after him. That is what Puja Gurudev did even after him. That is why the power of what they do is not in simply interpreting what the Shastra is. Making it relevant to you and me, where we are on this hamster wheel going round and round, don't think this has any relevance to us, making it not just relevant, but imperative to us, that is the real skill set that he has right there. That is why Hinduism is strong, because of these acharyas. Now, this whole line of thinking, because one argument is, I don't need to really understand Shastra to have progress as a Hindu. I'm a free thinker. I'm a think for myselfer. Therefore, through my own inquiry, I will come to conclusions. I'm not going to rely on some old text written in some foreign language. Isn't that something you've heard or even believed? If left to our own devices and our own intellects, forget the conclusions that Shankaracharya came to, would we even have these objections in train of thought at all? We wouldn't. There's one famous theory, okay, this is actually a real theory, that if you leave a monkey in a room alone with a typewriter, eventually it will type the famous phrase by Shakespeare, to be or not to be. Statistically speaking, with a finite amount of letters in the alphabet and a finite number of sentences you can make from that, at some point, it could take decades, the monkey will accidentally even type this out. The ability to gain moksha without Shastra, the likelihood is even less than that monkey writing to be or not to be. To be honest, that's what it is. Therefore, the Shastra has that relevance. Now, what does that mean for us today? None of us here are Sanskritam Panditas where we study this language and go deep into what Shastra says. That's not necessary for our growth as Hindus at this point. If we simply imbibe what the value system is, what the structure of the Shastra is, what are those yamas and niyamas, injunctions to observe in our religion are, and are we carrying it forward? Because inspiration to give this knowledge he had. Vision of what to go by and how to honor the Guru Parampara in doing that, he had. Creating a mission apparatus to give this knowledge out in a structured, deliberate, long-term way, he also had. The last part is legacy. Legacy is derived from him, incumbent on you and me to keep that legacy going. Which is why I make this plea to the teachers at the end of every single year, which is, we always need more Balvihar teachers. This institution runs purely on volunteers. The only full-time people serving are the Brahmacharyas and Swamins. So in this case, Divyaji and I. Besides that, it is purely volunteers. What we do, what Divyaji and I do, in the grand scheme of things, is like a speck of dirt in everything. It's infinitesimal. Really, really small what we do. Pravachans and classes and teaching and all of that. To create that structure and the very edifice of everything we do, that comes from all the volunteers. And out of all the activities that we do as a mission, there are seva projects that we do through CORD. There are study groups that we conduct for adults. Devi groups we conduct for ladies. We also have different mahotsavas and utsavas that we celebrate, whether it's pujas or different celebrations. There is assistance in terms of financial assistance we provide people, education, other ways we provide people, all of this. Supporting a Bhutanese community that's here, all of these things. Out of everything, though, the main emphasis that we place is on the Balavihar program. Not only because that's the largest need that families have, but if we are to fulfill this vision of Bhagavan Shri Adi Shankaracharya Ji and Gurudev, of spreading this knowledge for posterity and future generations, a strong Balavihar is that very first step to make that happen. Now, when I usually ask people to be teachers, the first thing they say is, I don't know anything about this stuff. No one ever starts out knowing about this stuff. Really? You think the teachers teaching now came out of the womb with books in their hands and then they were reading them since birth and that's why they're Balavihar teachers? Nah. Many of them learned on the job. Being a Balavihar teacher is like being president. Not in a powerful way. Okay, don't be deterred. Yeah. Don't think anything fanciful there. It's like being president in that you can be prepared and have training and know what you think you're getting into. Until you sit in that Oval Office, the classroom in this case, you don't fully know what to expect until you're in there going through it. That's when learning on the job, and mistakes will be made, but we learn from it. Now, why am I stressing on being a Balavihar teacher? If we look at what is growth for a Hindu, the very first step we say for growth is thinking and caring for something that is beyond my immediate surroundings. I care about myself, healthcare, my happiness, all of these things. I care about my husband, wife, and kids. Hopefully, I care about my husband, wife, and kids. Where in some cases, I care more about them than myself. What do I mean by that? Like 1 a.m., you feel some pain, like a toothache, leg pain, whatever it is. You open your medicine cabinet, Tylenol bottle's empty. What are you going to do? You're going to, drink some water or something and then force yourself to sleep and say, we'll take care of this later. Your kid has some ear infection or something, crying at 1 in the morning, there's no medicine. You bet you're going to go find the closest 24-hour CVS to get that medicine. What we wouldn't do for ourselves, we'll bear it. We can't bear to see the pain in someone that's a loved one. We will make sure that they're pain-free. Thinking beyond oneself, then, is not just a Hindu concept. That is human nature when there's love and regard for someone else. Now, this love and regard bubble that I have, it's big for some people. It's small for some people. That's a cultural thing as well. We're in corporate parties and things that they have. They tell people to bring things as a potluck. I had one colleague say to me, there's a hierarchy of soft drinks. At the top, you have your Cokes and your Pepsis and your Dr. Peppers and all those things. One step below that, have you ever had RC Cola? like the Kroger brand that has the Kroger logo on is generic stuff, where yeah, it smells and looks like real soda, but there's something about the taste and the after effects that's just, you know it's not the real stuff. So he brought RC Cola to the corporate party, and I was like, dude, what the heck? Like, this is so, why are you this conjuice? What's going on? And he says, you know, these are people that are in the office, I don't even really like them. Why am I gonna buy something more expensive than what I drink at home? I said, okay. Our culture, though, is if I'm giving something to someone else, I will always give them better than what I consume myself. That is a cultural difference. A big cultural difference, attributed to the way growth is seen in our religion. Producing more than what we consume. It's not just producing more, it's producing better for others than what we consume. That is our legacy. That is what everlastingly we give. So when that's the case, thinking beyond myself, another argument that's more of an internal argument for potential teachers is, it's not helping my kids, why should I take part in it? Well, buddy, the person teaching your kids is doing it for that reason, why can't you for other kids as well? Where do we see ourselves as just individual family units, or are we one mission family right here? That's the next step of thinking, when we broaden ourselves up. So giving back to that community then. Because some of our teachers, they start out really reluctant, and we had the Savux dinner last night, so I was talking to many teachers just observing. Many of them have now been teachers for 15 years or more. They're empty nesters, their kids are out of here. There's no real reason to come, technically speaking, because it's not bringing kids to Bal Vihar. They could come for other events in the mission and study groups and Devi groups, but they stick with it because they say, I can't think of a life without teaching Bal Vihar. Something feels empty when I'm not doing it. And these are teachers that resisted teaching so much in the beginning, saying, I don't know the content, I don't know how to handle kids. If you're raising kids, you know how to handle kids, really. Now, are kids misbehaved, especially at certain ages? Yes. I'm not going to deny that. Because if I deny it, my own Bal Vihar teachers that I had will come and tell you something different, you know? I was a terror to deal with, also. Many different reasons, but yeah. But the biggest reason to teach Bal Vihar is, for yourself as a sadhaka, taking in knowledge, we think that we're retaining it and we understand it. When it's time to teach, we see how much we actually know and how much we actually don't know. And all it takes is one kid to raise his hand and ask a question that's logical, pointing out a flaw in what you said, and instantly you think to yourself, that's right, I never thought of that way before. Some of these kids are brilliant in what they ask. I'll never forget what Swami Sarveshananji, okay? This is the first camp in America he ever did with third graders on Srimad Bhagavatam. First camp, so he came to America. 3 weeks later, he had to do this camp for kids. So culture shock is quite shocking for him at that point. He's talking about Bhagavan Krishna's avatara, how Vasudeva and Devaki are in the prison, and they have 7 children that are killed by Kamsa, and then Bhagavan Krishna, he goes through this entire thing. One kid inquisitively raises his hand and asks, was Kamsa stupid or what? Swamiji's like, yeah, but like, what context do you mean in? The kid says, if Kamsa was so afraid that Devaki and Vasudeva's child would kill him, why did he keep Devaki and Vasudeva in the same cell? Is what he asked. Third grader. And Swamiji's jaw fell to the ground. He almost passed out. He had out-of-body experience then, where he was like, what country am I in? What is happening here? And then he was like, wow, these kids are different. So you will have moments like that. Brilliance will be there. Kutarka, reasoning that is twisted reasoning, will also be there. That's part of the fun. That's how we grow as teachers. So, and dispel the notion that, teaching high school is like coveted and that's where the good teachers are, and then the other teachers teach lower grades. That's nonsense. Because every year teachers will ask me, I've taught 5th grade for 4 years now, can I be promoted to like 9th grade? This isn't a soccer league, okay? There's no promotion and relegation here. And I tell those teachers, for those that think, okay, I teach high school, therefore I'm a better teacher, 12th grade teacher, let me put you in kindergarten next week. Let's see how you survive. It'll be like Gulliver's Travels. You know, when they like pin down the guy and then they like, you know, conquer him like that? These kids will conquer you at that point. There's a different skill set for each grade. The amount of energy required to handle a kindergarten through 3rd grade class is off the charts. Where unlike high school, you can't come in there and be like, hey guys, I'm tired of a long week, didn't really prepare that much, let's sit down and have a conversation about this topic. Try that with a 2nd grade class. You as the teacher will run out of the room crying at that point. Similarly, you go to the high school class, they're asking all these questions, and you say, hey, let's tell you a story, something interesting and this and that, try to evade the question. That will get you. Different skill set is needed everywhere. So there will be a message going out in the parent WhatsApp groups with a form to fill out, an interest form for teaching. You will get training. You will get plenty of training. Teacher resources, teacher material. Your first year of teaching, you will be paired with an experienced teacher. 2 years of experience is an experienced teacher, okay? This is not like a tenure track where, I only want to teach with someone who's taught for 50 years so far. We don't have those here, I'm sorry. Someday, not yet. So you will get some help, but we would love to have you teach. And an update for next year, starting in August, I will be at Frisco. We're rotating. So Divyaji will be back here. The last time I was at Frisco, we were still wearing masks there. So I'll get to see people, faces for the first time, actually. So it'll be fun. Divyaji will be here at Chitrakoot. She'll be taking Chitrakoot and Saket. I'll open it up for any questions. After the pre-K class, they have a special presentation. I'm going to go there in about 4 minutes or so. I know your hand was up, sir, in the beginning. I did notice that, in the red right there. Did you have a question? Yeah.
What I'm trying to say is, the knowledge you're talking about, that's still part of the will.
Say it again?
The knowledge is still part of the will.
Still part of the will. Willpower has to be there for that. Is that what you meant? Like willpower?
No, the spiritual knowledge we talked about, that is still part of the will.
Part of the veil. Okay, what is covering things up? Because that which is completely outside the bounds of intellect and words, we're still trying to use words to describe that, therefore that's still part of that superimposition. True. That is why the scriptures don't claim that what we're saying is describing the truth, or is the truth, pointing at the truth. Where the process that's gone through, it's a process called adhyaropa apavada. Adhyaropa means intentionally placing a veil or a superimposition. Intentionally placing it. Adhyaropa is removing it. What does that mean? For example, you take the stages or the sheaths that are on the personality. Most basic layer, Annamaya Kosha, that food sheath. We went through this. More subtle than that, Pranamaya Kosha. When it's not just the sense organs in this physical body, more of how does breathing happen, the whole vital air system, all of that. More subtle than that, Manomaya Kosha, mind, seat of emotions. More subtle, Vijnanamaya Kosha, intellect. More subtle, Anandamaya Kosha, storehouse of vasanas, the bliss sheath, where any desire, everything trickles down from there. Now with these sheaths, the way this knowledge is given, first knowledge is, you are this food layer. That scripture actually says that, you are this food layer. After assessing that and seeing that, okay, it's impermanent, I can't be something impermanent, I'm something more subtle, then you are this pranamaya kosha, vital air sheath. Then finding reasons why that's not true, going up and up. So Shastra has me attached to something at every point, only to break that notion later on. Meaning it's a process called neti neti. Na iti, na iti. You point to this part of my personality layer, this is not me. Take away that layer. I must be this then. Okay, this is also not me. Remove like corn husk from a cob of corn, you take that off as well. What remains is that corn, like that. What remains after every part of my personality layer that's perceptible is removed is only this truth then. So that's how Shastra puts those veils on me, then goes through, removes those veils, points at what is the truth right there. So with that, if you have any doubts about teaching as well, or you feel like these are questions I don't want to ask you in public, but some questions about teaching, whether it's time commitment or all of these things, reach out, and there is no such thing as a bad teacher. We're all learning. If you had listened to my lectures when I first came back, you'd run out of here, okay? Now it's tolerable and you're able to sit for at least 40 minutes. It wasn't like that in the beginning, guys. I swear to you. So teaching, Bala teachers, we improve steadily. That's how it goes. The reward of teaching kids and feeling the love from them and seeing how they grow, eventually seeing them graduate, you feel like, okay, your kids do that, how proud do you feel? Now imagine like 10 to 20 kids doing that you're so close to. The feeling is completely something different. It's a wonderful feeling to have. So with that, please do keep in touch, and I'll see you at some point when we start back up in August. If you're a teacher, we have training, so I get to see you guys more if you're a teacher. But if not, reach out anytime, and Divyaji will be here come August time. Don't forget to register your kids for Balavihar. Every year some people forget, just assuming that they're registered, and it's not so. So please do go through that registration process. Om Purnamadav Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate Om Shanti 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 Harihi Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha Harihi